Hey, what's up guys? Joel Elements here once again, and today we're looking at the topic gear matters. I know there are so many people out there, so many videos out there here on YouTube, and people are saying that gear doesn't matter. And you know, the funny thing is, most of the people who does say that gear doesn't matter are the ones that owns so many gears, are the ones who are chasing after the latest, are the ones who have doubles of certain equipment. Now, what I want to say here is that gear definitely matters, and the reason why gear matters is what we're going to get into and explain. So if you look over here, you realize that there are so many cameras and so many lenses and bits and bobs over here. Now, if you look over here on my right, this is the Canon C300 Mark II. And then right next to it, we have the 1DX Mark III. And if you're looking at these two cameras, yes, they're the same brand, but the difference between these two is that the 1DX Mark III is shooting 5.5K RAW. And then comparing it to the Canon C300 Mark II, this shoot decent 4K at 410 bits. However, this has built-in ND filters and this Canon 1DX Mark III doesn't. This comes with XLR ports and SDI ports and built-in monitor, and this doesn't. And so the difference between these two depends on what your needs are, depends on what your clients are demanding for. So if you require to do run and gun where you would need ND filters so that you don't have to necessarily be switching ND filters each time you change your lens, this is the camera to go. If you require direct XLR with phantom power into the camera, this is the way to go. It doesn't mean that this is better than that. This is purely because that is what the needs or the requirements are for the shooting style that you're doing. And so if you look at the 1DX Mark III, it's shooting 5.5K RAW. Perhaps you need RAW instead of all of these bits that I have mentioned here. And so there is where this Canon 1DX Mark III comes in. Besides shooting 5.5K RAW, it's shooting at 1000 megabits. So that means it's a lot more versatile in regards to color grading. Are you going to be color grading your shots? Are you going to be pushing and pulling your shot a lot? Then definitely this is the way to go. It just does mean that it comes with a little bit more of a hustle in putting ND filters in front of your lens, perhaps having an external recorder, perhaps having a bigger external screen. Yes, it comes with that. But this clearly tells us that gear 100% matters, because perhaps I own the 1DX Mark III because I'm both a photographer and a videographer, but maybe my next shoot I require built-in ND because I'm doing run and gun, I'm following a celebrity around or something. This is the camera to go for, not that. So there's where perhaps you purchase the next camera, or there's where perhaps you go out and rent this camera for that particular needs. And so if you move on from the 1DX, knowing that it shoots photography at 20 megapixels and very, very fast, if you move on to the one next to it, which is a Fujifilm GFX100S, the Fujifilm GFX100S is shooting a whopping 100 million pixels. That is the 100 million pixels. However, between the two, the video features on the Fuji X100S is very, very basic. The autofocus features is very, very basic compared to the 1DX Mark III, which has the dual pixel autofocus. And so here's where it comes in. Do I require a high-end photography camera compared to a high-end or mid-range photography camera with a video feature? And so this demands me, perhaps I'm shooting billboards photography, maybe I'm shooting food photography, or photography that requires sharp and very detailed and accurate colors. Then perhaps this is the camera that I need and not this, regardless of it shooting 5.5K, regardless of it being very fast, the shooting burst rate compared to this one. This is what I need for that particular shoot. And if you step down to the next one here, we have another Fuji, the same brand, a lot cheaper, and it shoots at 26 million pixels instead of 100 million pixels. However, if you look at the size differences, there is a reason why the size differences. One is medium format and one is cropped sensor. And so with the medium format, if you look over here, I have this heavy, big 80mm 1.7 lens that will give me the most beautiful shallow depth of field, the most beautiful images that you can get compared to the Canon and the smaller brother of the Fujifilm. And so that means that for this particular camera, I need a different type of lens to give me something similar to this 1.4 on the medium format. And there is where the 56 1.2 comes in. Because it is a 1.2 instead of comparing it to 1.7, now on a crop sensor camera, I can get something similar to what this has in regards to medium format image. There you go. So it tells me that these two definitely matters, again, depending on my needs, depending on how much I want to spend, depending on the requirement of the clients, then the gear does matter. So if you move on, the same brand, Fujifilm XT3. XT3 is a baby brother of the XT4 or predecessor, whichever you want to call it. And you realize that it is less feature packed than the XT4. The XT4 has a faster shutter, it has a faster autofocus. Lots of things in here is slightly different than what the XT3 gives you. And so between even those two different versions, the gear does matter. Now, let's have a look at other gears. When a lot of people say gear doesn't matter, they mostly are referring to camera system. They're forgetting that we need a gimbal. They're forgetting that we need a monitor. They're forgetting that we need a transmitter. You know, they say gear doesn't matter when they're talking about cameras, but they forget all about the other parts that actually makes shooting much, much more comfortable and reliable. So if you look over here, these cameras, some of them have built-in stabilizers. Yes, as good as some of them are, it cannot compare to a gimbal. There is no way that the built-in stabilizer on the XT4 or any other camera will be able to compete with a gimbal. So if your demand requires you to have a sturdy moving shot, you cannot say gear doesn't matter and you're just going to shoot the camera, but you would require a gimbal or a Steadicam of sorts. And so definitely that part of the gear does matter. If you move on to here, you see that we've got two monitors, one the Holyland M1 and then one the Small HD 502 Bright. It's been by far my favorite monitor. It does very, very well in color reproduction, but even then, there is two different monitors. The M1 has even a better color reproduction than the Small HD 502, but it doesn't end there. It does not end there. Now, if I need to do an overhead shoot of a product and I cannot tilt my screen or I'm too far from the camera, there is where a monitor comes in handy, an external monitor. And there is where I would need a transmitter for me to be able to wirelessly monitor the footage that's coming off the camera. And so it tells me that an external monitor definitely matters when I'm doing overhead shoots or where the camera is placed in a way that I cannot reach the viewfinder or the screen to see my shot. I need a monitor. With the monitor, I'll need a transmitter. Depending how far the camera is from the monitor, I would require a transmitter of sorts to be able to freely monitor the footage without it hindering the shoot. And so maybe you have the Small HD 502 Bright, but then Holyland has released the M1 transceiver. So why should I get that? The reason why that this now matters is because it's got a built-in transmitter and receiver. And so it takes away the extra gear that you'd need to be able to wirelessly connect to my previous 502 Bright. And so this gear now makes this one, quote unquote, if not obsolete, because now I do not need to worry about having a separate transmitter. And so this becomes very, very handy. So if you see here, gear 100% matters. It doesn't just end there. Look at this tiny camera here, the DJI Action 2. This camera here, being so modular, I can easily dive into water with this without having to worry about it drowning itself. And comparing it to the 1DX or any of these cameras, I would need a specialized case for me to be able to do that. And so this now acts away the extra case that I need to buy with that. However, this camera cannot do what this camera can do in regards to taking pictures and taking pictures like this. It will not be able to do that. And so it tells you that gear does matter in regards to what you need it for, or your needs are required. If you look at this tiny little thing here, this is a recorder that allows me to record a higher bit depth than some of these cameras. And so if I have an XT3 that the bit depth is very low, meaning I can't push and pull the color too much in post, I'll connect this recorder to it, Atomos recorder, and that will allow me to record a 10-bit depth, and so I can pull and push my colors even more without having to worry about it falling apart. So this is it for me. Let me know what your thoughts are. Does gear matter to you? Or do you fall for all of those people who are saying gear doesn't matter? To me, I 100% agree that gear does matter, depending on your needs. And so for that reason, don't just follow any trend that's going out there. Don't run to go and buy the latest cameras. Don't go and chase the latest gear that's been released, but rather, what are your needs? What are your requirements? Are you doing run and gun? Are you doing fast-paced action photography? Are you doing high-end detailed photography? Or are you just a consumer who is just doing hobby stuff? So it depends on what your needs are. But gear does matter. And I know that people tend to say, oh, the best camera in your pocket is what you have with you, which is your phone. Yes, this Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra does shoot a good 200 million pixels, but the quality of this camera will not compete with even the XT3, which shoots a 26 million pixel. When it comes to reality, when you take the pictures and you want to pull and push them around, you realize that this is very digital. So it does matter. Gear 100% matters. So I'll leave it here. I'm ranting for too long. Leave a comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are. In fact, let me know what camera gear that you own, or whether you collect just like I do, and what you have. And let's pick up a conversation from there. Stay tuned. My name is Bruce Nyamke, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.